Hi guys, once again this is Alfred from BinaryOptionsTutor.com. Here with an update to the BigDaddy strategy. Yeah, you guys got me. We tried very hard to make sure we had everything covered for the BigDaddy by the time we got it out, but there's one little one thing that escaped me, and that's the pop-up alerts were not giving the name of the currency pair, although it was in the experts log that's usually down at the bottom. It wasn't in the pop-up alerts. So in the latest update, which if you've already purchased the strategy, it's going to be on our site, is the bundle version 2. The latest update that's been fixed. While we were at it, we decided to do some other stuff to try and enhance the strategy, make it a little bit more intuitive. Now, one thing that we done is, for convenience, we done some tweaks to the crosswalk indicator, just to make it more convenient. I'm gonna cover them right now. You can always right click on your chart, go down to indicators. There's actually not a BigDaddy indicator on here, but this is essentially the BigDaddy template. I want to talk about that in a sec, but here's our crosswalk indicator, and this is our settings. If you select show forming bar and set it to true, then now you'll always see the bar as it's forming right along with the price action up top. But also we've put something in here which you always have been able to adjust what kind of alerts you want to hear. Do you want to hear the weak alerts? Is the crosswalk is going up or down? Do you want to hear when we're in the gray area? Do you want to hear the strong? I always leave mine at strong because that's when I want to be called to pay attention to a chart. Alerts enabled, that's fine. But what we've added here, obviously we've edited the pop-ups, so they're going to show the actual name of the currencies when they pop. But we've also added alert time in seconds, and what that is when we were using the crosswalk, and always I've noticed is that once you load a lot of charts, crosswalk can be kind of verbose. So you can turn the forming bar on, and you can set a delay in between each of these audible alerts. By default, we've got it set to 10 seconds. You can move it up, move it down. For me, 10 seconds or longer, that's cool, because I don't want to be alerted every time small changes in the condition happens. At a point, I've got to look at my chart, do an interpretation, and move forward. So if I'm going to actually look at the forming bar, then it's great to just have a little delay and to use the crosswalk as a tool and just go on from there. So that's going to clear up a lot of the audibles. Setting this delay, again, this is in seconds, not minutes. And now you can turn that on when you're using the forming bar. Just got one in, even though the market's not open, but that's because I just initialized again. When you're looking at the crosswalk, guys, and looking at the whole entire layout for the BigDaddy, you can see right here, this is some trades I was doing earlier on spot, and I was tinkering around on Nadex. I was doing trades earlier last night, and there was no BigDaddy alert here. There was nothing here to tell me, but I could look at the chart, I could see that formation starting up, and I could see once we've crossed and broken through that great barrier that we had there, that 200 EMA, and I was able to go long because I've got everything here giving me strong momentum indication, and I don't have a great barrier right in front of me, and was able to ride that up. Now I was aware of some news, inevitable news around here's where the news came on that candle right there, but I was actually in and going long probably around there, and you know, like I said, the news came. You see that big wick, everything gets pushed down. This coincidentally, that area right there, there's a binary on Nadex, and that's about where yeah, about here is where that binary option ended at. But all through this area, you can see some pushes back. You know, that's to hopefully, you know, knock some guys out. But just a nice smooth uptrend. What I'm getting at is you don't necessarily have to wait on the alerts. Once you start to understand how to read and interpret the chart and interpret the layout. Now, speaking of the alerts, give me just a sec and we're going to pull up the alert, and let's talk about some of the changes, little tweaks that we've done on the BigDaddy. Okay, here's a BigDaddy log file. You can see this is for the USD CAD 15-minute chart. That's what we're always trading off of. It's a put. It's giving us a strike price here of 122,700. Giving you a suggested range to try and get in 122,700 to 767. Giving you the signal strength is strong, so hopefully we're catching the start of a nice trend there. Giving you an expired time, so which that was like, because this is where the time is starting at here, over here, that's where the time starts. So it's like basically you're looking at about a hour and a half on that, the time on that trade. Giving you the volatility. If there's not enough volatility, then you're just not going to hear the BigDaddy alert, because we've kind of hard coded some ideas about where the volatility should be for each pair, as far as the 11 pairs that are listed on our site. So you know that there's some volatility there cooking, but in your log you'll be able to spot the volatility and maybe you know, use these statistics over time to spot some little nuances that you can trade around also. I'm gonna go forward, and we're gonna look at this little bet. I didn't catch this one at the very start. This wasn't on my PC. We've added a little arrow. I hope you guys can see that. Got this little arrow here, and this is where the signal actually came at. See that little arrow there? And it's right by the 8 EMA. You can see everything lining up. Now this is not the level that you would have entered on, but the reason that my brother and I decided to put these arrows by this 8 EMA is because, just like I talked about in the other video, it's a great place to look for a pullback. and get in there. Some guys call it the tail line, but there's always well, sometimes there's a resumption, or the price itself will kind of, return to that 8 EMA. So that's why it's a good place to go back to and maybe catch the ride down. Now this puppy here, it just started, running, and just moved continuously down. So there wasn't necessarily a pullback perfectly to the 8 EMA, but it's there, and we're actually, just putting the arrows by the 8 EMA to give you guys an idea of a place to look for a pullback. This is further down. This would actually be the that start of that candle there would be the expiry. You can see we start to repel again, and the guys came in and were ready to do a little buying around the end. But it was a nice enough move that it's probably about, depending on where you got in, about a 9 pip, 8 pip move. So we're hoping that these little arrows are going to, make the Big Daddy a little bit more easier to follow and a little bit more intuitive. When all of the rules are there, you can see we're trading below the 8. You can see our slopes turn. We are trading above 200. So, I didn't expect a huge move. If you could look at the chart that I showed earlier, when we broke out and we started moving ahead of the 200 and getting above, that was a big move. This is a move, it's a pullback, and we're kind of going back down to the 200. You see, it's not as big of a move like I talked about in the book. Of course, we had a strong, at the time, we had a strong crosswalk indication. You can see that starting to break down there. And we did get a little price action moving back up, just slightly, not enough to knock us out, but still a little move back up around the end of this 1 hour and a half alert here. And that's pretty much it, guys. Oh, I want to talk about one thing. These arrows are not going to repaint, but this is something you're going to have to be mindful of. You will have to turn on a chart and leave that chart running in order to keep the arrows in place. You cannot right click and click refresh on the chart, because it'll wipe the chart clean and the arrows won't be there. If you want to try and keep a record of some arrows and look at a strategy as it plays out, you're going to have to leave the chart active and running in order to keep the arrows, because there's just a multitude of things that create that harmony that makes the Big Daddy signal. So there has to be a central place inside of the memory to keep all of this stuff and actually drop a graphical arrow. And there's just no way to do that. No way to do that without actually leaving the machine running and keeping a tally. That's all I had to mention on this, guys. Big Daddy, again, we got a couple of days left of the launch special, where we're actually including the Big Daddy and the green arrow strategy at one low price. After this, we're going to move the combo price of the Big Daddy up, and we're going to sell, well, we're going to move this combo price of the Big Daddy and the green arrow up, and we're going to sell the Big Daddy by itself and the green arrow by itself. And these will be two good strategies to use hand in hand. A long-term trend trading strategy that's certainly applicable for spot. Some guys have been asking, well, can you trade this on spot? I really like trading the Big Daddy on spot as much. In some instances, depending on how it works out, sometimes it's better to do a binary when there's not a huge amount of movement like this. You see, we got our alert. It did work out, but there's not a lot of movement. It's around the end of the day, closer to the end of the day, and there wasn't a lot of movement back down, and we knew we had that big wall with that 200 moving average there. This is probably better as a binary trade, because all you can anticipate is that there's not going to be as much movement. You saw earlier on when all of the harmony came together, you saw a huge move. Uh, this is the same pair. This is dollar CAD. So yeah, depending on what the environment is, sometimes I prefer trading the BigDaddy on spot, or doing the spreads on Nadex, or taking even some out of the money binaries on Nadex. I'll talk more about that in other videos, but it's a very, very useful tool. You can see for a long time we were doing BigDaddies earlier at the top of this year in our on our live Twitter feed. See you guys on the next video. Once again, this is Alfred from BinaryOptionsTutor.com. I'll put a link to the strategy. Still on special now, guys, but only for the next couple of days. I just wanted to cover the updates and the stuff we've added to make this hopefully a little bit more intuitive and a little bit easier to follow. I want guys to be able to look at the charts, read what's happening very quickly, and start getting down the road to that decision making process. Until next time, this is Alfred from BinaryOptionsTutor.com.